Okay, this is a pretty. I feel like this is a pretty obvious topic, but I guess some people might not know about this. I don't know. I feel like it's worth discussion. It's on my mind. So movies have titles. Movies have always had titles. That's usually the whole gist. If they don't, it's some weird art piece. We don't talk about it. I watched a movie recently. In fact, I watched it today, called Burial Ground. It's a new 4K from 88 Films. Delightful picture. Wonderful stuff. However, the title of it immediately was like, The Night of Terror. And I'm like, say what now? What's this about a night and terror and what? Not to mention the fact that the majority of the film takes place during the day. Here's one morning, how picturesque. Here's the next morning, how picturesque. Here's the night of terror, how not picturesque. Terror goes throughout the whole thing. It's literally zombies come up from the grave and they just keep on coming. It's wonderful stuff. Another one, The Haunting of Julia, otherwise known as Full Circle, or at least if I were to take off the sleeve from this 4K Scream Factory edition, it does have the alternate title. You can also buy the imprint version, which provides a sleeve as well, and even allows you to put in the title of Full Circle or Haunting of Julia in the movie. A lot of stuff like that. There's a movie called Zombie 2. Technically, it's also called Zombie Flesh Eaters. It's also called Zombie, the Lucio Fulci film. That one, I don't know if the 4K UHD has the alternate titles. I know the Arrow video did, because I've only seen the Arrow video version, but I do have the 4K. The Arrow video version is titled Zombie Flesh Eaters, but you have the option of choosing Zombie Flesh Eaters as your title, Zombie 2, or I think just Zombie. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it is also called Zombie 2, because it's technically a sequel to Dawn of the Dead. It's a thing. So what am I getting at here? You probably think, get to the point. Movies, titles, we get it. Yeah, movies have a lot of different titles. What's up with that? Oh, look at me. I'm doing one of those edgy intros, except we're 6 minutes in. It's just a thing that happened. It's weird, isn't it? Like, so many movies exist, and a lot of them have different titles depending on either the country or the production company, or the director wants this title, but the producer wants that title. Well, in these countries, it's going to be released as this, but in those countries, it's going to be released as that. Sometimes it's what's more marketable. You know, like, again, Haunting of Julia was, I believe, the American title of the movie, because it's also, based on a book called Julia. No, it's not just because it's got a semi-relation to my own name. It's just because it's there. But Full Circle is the British name, and I believe was also the Australian name. So, how about that, I mean, Full Circle makes more sense for it being, well, thematically relevant. But The Haunting of Julia also makes sense, because it's about the haunting of a character called Julia. She's being haunted by shit. Mostly trauma, but also ghosts. Two and the same. Nevertheless, it's an interesting factor. Like Burial Ground, I have no idea why the hell it's called Night of Terror. There is nothing on the 4K that emphasizes, also known as Night of Terror. If you go on Letterboxd for a lot of films, they will have their main title, but then it'll also have underneath it sometimes an alternate title. If it's in a different language, it'll say, hey, this is what the title is in that other language, because that's its, maiden voyage. That's where it came from. If it's Italian, it's... I don't know Italian for Burial Ground, but again, it's not called Burial Ground in Italian. Even the 4K itself doesn't have Burial Ground as the title, which is bizarre to me. And honestly, I don't know which one's a better name, because it's, then I have the choice of choosing. Do I prefer Burial Ground for the movie, or do I prefer Night of Terror? I think Night of Terror sounds more interesting, but given it's a film about zombies who come up from the graves, Burial Ground also works. None of these titles really work for the movie, realistically, because again, Night of Terror sounds interesting, but it's not set at night. Like, there's 20 minutes at night time. It's only an 85-minute long film, but the majority of it's set during the day. Even the first night, they're asleep and they wake up in the next morning and nothing's happened except one girl's had a dream that something bad's gonna happen. I love it. So it's a weird situation like that. But yeah, most of the time, I mean, that's mostly the basic reason for it. It's just because release wise, they've had to release it in this country is this title, in this country is that title. A lot of movies, I think one of them, the Sergio Leone film, A Fistful of Dynamite, is also called Duck You Sucker. It's called AKA Duck You Sucker. If I find it, Italian section, Leone's there, second last one, Eureka. Eureka. Because it's called A Fistful of Dynamite. But it also says Duck You Sucker. Actually, on the back, that's a lot better time. Okay. On the back there, it emphasizes multiple names, as you can see on the top, the bottom line. So, A Fistful of Dynamite, aka Duck You Sucker, Guila Testa, because Italian, or Once Upon a Time, The Revolution. Which I guess I can understand why he didn't do that one, but at the same time, I don't know, he'd already done Once Upon a Time in the West, then he did Once Upon a Time in America, so I guess to some degree, as a Once Upon a Time trilogy, he didn't do that many films. Really did not do that many films, it's surprising. Now, most of the time, these are restricted to lower budget films, say, independent films, or, cheaper Italian schlock, or whatever. I mean, schlock in just the element of it's made with this element, like Burial Ground, they're made with the element of, we're going to have titties, we're going to have a lot of violence and gore, and we're basically not going to have a story. It's fine, and that's not all the time. Again, say, the Sergio Leone film, Haunting of Julia, sometimes there's the essence of their lower budget films. Actually, I guess Fistful of Dynamite kind of works as well, because it's an Italian film, but like it's the spaghetti western kind of film. I don't think it's actually a western. I'm pretty sure it's not. It's the only one of these films I haven't seen. So, but still, Haunting of Julia, on the other hand, is like, that just seems like a preference of, well, the Americans like this title, they'll find that catchier, whereas, the Brits will find this title catchier. It is what it is, I guess, yeah. I'm there might be a little wiggle room of what's that thing where you'd be really kind of critical of a thing? You're like, Americans dumb, they want simple title, Haunting of Julia. British smart, they want theatrical title, Full Circle. I feel like there's an element of it that's kind of a bit of, that's where your market's at. And fair enough, sometimes you gotta make things pop immediately. You look at the posters and they're completely different. Full Circle's poster is Mia Farrow. She looks all like she does in the poster. But then you look at the Haunting of Julia poster and, I'll just grab it out again. Like, they are two completely different posters. Like, Full Circle is... Actually, I thought that was a sword, I'll be honest. It's not. It's a bloody window. She's in her overalls, she's hiding behind a window. There's a bit of a cloth there, and it's like, okay, but there's nothing here that insinuates ghosts, But then Haunting of Julia is, look, it's a ghost! It also gives the implication that Julia's a girl. She's not a girl. The ghost is a girl, sure, but, yeah, it's a weird one. That's a very, very weird one. I mean, these are all good films. The ones I've seen, of course. It can be interesting because, again, sometimes they can be very small changes. Like, some of my favorite, a lot of these are going to be Italian films because I actually understand Italian. But I love the demoni films. So the demons films. Demons and Demons 2. I don't like calling them Demons or Demons 2. I like calling them Demoni and Demoni 2 because it sounds cooler. Sometimes you want to go with the title that's like, that's the title, I want that one, It's like how I like the element of all things, the patron element on Letterboxd allows you to change your poster for the movie. And a lot of these movies' posters will be exactly the same, maybe just a slightly different color timing, sometimes a different title, usually in a different language. Sometimes it's just fun to see what different posters they have, because at the same time, it's all about the advertising. And that much goes all in this as well, where you can have a slap of the same poster for one movie, but then suddenly you go to Japan, everything's all over the place. It is the craziest shit you'll ever see, and honestly, I love it. My friend guy will constantly change every poster of a movie he has seen. If there is a Japanese poster available, he will change the poster. Sometimes it can be very simple, like it's just the same poster, but it's got Japanese, characters. But at the same time, why not? Like, I've got Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they've got some great posters for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I went with the Japanese one because I'm like, this kind of just looks cool, and this is just what I feel like having it as for the time being. It's not a permanent thing, but for now, it will be, It's fun. It also is fun to also see what other people change their posters as if they are also patrons. Not sponsored. But yeah, it can be a bit tricky though when you're watching a film and again a different title comes up, or you're looking into a film, you're looking into researching a film, whatever. Maybe you just want to buy it. And you're like, oh, I want to get a Burial Ground, say. Actually, let's go for Haunting of Julia. Say you want to say, I want to get Full Circle in 4K, and it keeps popping up with Haunting of Julia, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck this is. What is it? And you're looking into more. Some people don't always go immediacy of like, let's look up the film, get an idea of why it has multiple titles, because it's not an immediate response. You don't think of a movie and think, this has 16 different titles. As in English titles, not like as in different language titles. No, it's not a common thing. And that's also fine, Like, sometimes it goes with the period of the time, sometimes it just isn't. I'm assuming there is probably a lot of modern films. In fact, yeah, the Japanese titles for the Fast and Furious films are all different, as well as the fact that the only reason they haven't called it the Fast and the Furious 2 is because the legal rights belong to Roger Corman, I believe. But so that's why all the movies' titles are different. So it's also kind of fun. Why not? Who cares? F9, the Fast Saga, Fast X. Fate of the Furious, but it's got an 8 in there instead of an A. What's going on? I don't know. Who cares? You got what? The Fast 7, Furious 5. No, it's Fast 5, Furious 7, and Furious 6. That was a weird one. But the Japanese titles are all completely different. I will put them there because I don't know them off by heart, but they are insane, as you can see here. That's just fun. That's just clearly one of those things where they're like, this will sell better with this kind of a name. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of like Marvel films that have slightly different names. I think most of the Avengers ones and stuff like that, like they can have different titles in different countries. Sometimes it could just be a basis of like, oh, Avenger sounds a bit, obviously they want to the title is meant to be heroic, but like, oh, it sounds a bit violent. Let's change it to the superheroes. I don't know. Still, sometimes there's a basis like that where culturally, oh, well, we don't take lightly to violence in the titles, we're going to change it a little bit, and it's still promoted as the exact same movie, because it is the exact same movie. Unless it's China, then it's not. So, yeah. As an overall, it's interesting. I'm not going to say this counts as like for different cuts of movies, because that's also a different thing where you'll have like director's cuts and stuff like that. You look at Blade Runner, you've got the final cut, you've got the director's cut, you've got the theatrical cut. But then you've got something like The Godfather 3, which has 3 different versions as well. You've got The Godfather Part 3. I don't know what the special edition's called. There's like a slightly longer edition. It could just be called like the special edition or director's cut or something. But then of course there is the final cut, but it's not called the final cut. It's called the Coda, the death of Michael Corleone. Dramatic. But yeah, no, there's stuff like that where it's different cuts have different names respectively, and I can sometimes appreciate that. Like, again, sometimes it's just simply, it's the final cut, it's the director's cut, it's the extended cut, it's the Blue's Clues cut. That's right, Blues is right there. He's in the corner the whole time. You won't even notice him, but he's there, Some bullshit like that, why not? So, yeah. I just felt like talking about this because it's like, I've got an abundance of films that have different names, and they can be, again, simple things like Italian, European titled movies that have different titles that approach to different, values of the market, that kind of jam. But then you've also got stuff like Haunting of Julia, where 2 different countries will give it 2 different names because Why not? You know, they can, as long as it can be applied to the print. That's probably more of a legal reason as well as like a legal reason in terms of distribution. You know, like, oh, the distribution people in the UK and the Australia have the title Full Circle, but then in the US it's The Haunting of Julia. Again, maybe it's all run by the same person and they were like, hey, you know, I think if we put it as Full Circle in the US, they'll be like, what the fuck's a full circle? Like, we're just gonna look at a circle the whole time? What's this all about? But if you call it The Haunting of Julia, they'll be like, hey, there's this girl, she's been haunted. Or maybe she's doing the haunting. Aha! Either way, ghosts. It's implied, you know? Stronger implications than Full Circle. You know, I don't like the title for Full Circle. I much prefer Haunting of Julia. Because it's a ghost thing. It makes more sense. I know Full Circle's still like the more appropriate title. And you look at the Scream Factory release, it does actually still have the... Because, of course... Which is actually interesting. It has... The sleeve and the main artwork is Haunting of Julia. The reversible is Full Circle. The title in the movie is Full Circle. But they don't give you the alternate title opportunity. Like the imprint version does. And potentially the Studio Canal version. Is it Studio Canal? Maybe BFI or whatever, whoever did the British release. I don't know if they had the opportunity to be like, hey, you can choose. But the fact that the imprint version was like, hey, you can choose. You can choose this title or that title. That's interesting. Again, much like with the Arrow video release of Zombie Flesh Eater, Zombie 2, that kind of stuff. So, anyway, what's your favourite alternate title to a movie that has a probably more well-known popular title or whatever? Let me know. It's interesting knowing other movie titles because, again, sometimes you might look up Zombie 2 and find out, actually, it's Zombie Flesh Eaters. Actually, it's Zombie. Actually, no, it's just those three. Don't worry about it. It's nothing more, just the three. But still. Cool. Well, that is all. Thanks for watching. Again, let me know your thoughts and I'll see you next time. Adios.